right, Ciryl Gane has called out Jon Jones for March. Now, that's great. That's really great news. He can't stop now. He cannot stop now. He's got to stay on it. He's got to put his foot down on the pedal. Francis is in the middle of a negotiation, right? We understand those things. Francis returning against Jones must remain the number one thing that the fight fans want to see if Francis is going to have any shot at that negotiation. Because there's not 2 fights out there for Francis. Now, that could change over time. There's not 3 fights out there for Francis. That can change over time. But there's also not 2 fights for Jones. There's not 3 fights for Jones. There's 1. And the reason I say that, if Ciryl is successful in calling out Jones, staying on it, finally getting a response from Jon, back and forth, working you guys in, commanding the media and getting the headlines, and Ciryl versus Jon becomes the premier sought-after match in the heavyweight division, the negotiation for Francis is now over. What's that got to do, right? What's that got to do with Ciryl? Well, Ciryl's on the right path, or on the right track. Very much going down the right road. He called out Jon Jones. I mean, when do you guys know it was for March? This is to the point that it's comical. Every fight that has been discussed for the last 3 months has been discussed for March. And I mean all of them. All of them. Volkanovski and Islam originally were going to fight in March. Okay, that's not a joke. That is the night we're going to fight in March. They ended up moving it to February. Every fight has been scheduled for March, and now Ciryl wants Jon. Jon is in a precarious position. Jon has every right to go out and get the biggest fight that he can. Jon Jones is also motivated by the World Championship. So if Jon wants to hold out and get in there with Francis, and it means a World Championship, Jon's doing nothing wrong. But Jon is in a position where he is a prize fighter. He's gotten no prize because he's done no fighting for years. Many, many years. Jon's got to get back to work. I think we can all understand that, right? Wouldn't you? If you hadn't been paid in 3 years, wouldn't you like to go and get paid? It's one of those things. So Jon, as much as he would like to hold out for a World Championship fight, he's just going to need to fight. He's going to want to fight. That's a big fight. It's a big deal. There is something really terrific about the story of Jon Jones walking right in to a world title match. There's something very, very special about that. There is something also special about Jon Jones working his way into a title match. I would think if Ciryl is successful at getting Jon, that it would be for an interim belt, but I wouldn't actually know that. I do know that we as a community, and we stated it many times for many months and nobody corrected us, we as a community did believe if Jon was to fight Stipe, they would be fighting for an interim championship, and that was back in December. So if we're going to kick this can and we're going to go to March, I feel pretty confident in telling you that, but I don't base it on anything. I just like the idea that Ciryl Gane, who has done nothing more than bury his head in the sand, has finally called someone out. Look, it was a tweet. I don't know that I have confidence that he did the tweet. I think maybe his manager stepped in and grabbed it and did it for him, but it was still done, and there's a lot of guys that do that. And it was kind of a complex tweet. Like there was a picture of Ciryl in the ring after victory, I believe, over Derek Lewis the night he won the interim championship. But I'm just sharing, Ciryl, who's never been able to put forward an interesting tweet in his career, I don't think was also able to offer a JPEG and know how to get the whole thing out. I'm just suggesting for you, whoever did it, keep doing it. Whoever's got control, just keep doing it. Jon's not going to be able to say no forever. Jon doesn't want to say no forever. If you're bringing a belt, I think you get Jon to say yes right now. So keep beating the drum, keep on making it interesting, keep on pulling away, keep doing anything you can to create a division between those three guys, Stipe, Ngannou, and Jones, who have just gone over and played by themselves and gotten away with it for years. The only thing those guys have in common is none of them have fought in a year. It's the only commonality that they have. I think there is something really interesting about Ciryl versus Jones. And I think one of the other interesting things that happens when you start to get Ciryl into that matrix is eventually you end up on Ciryl and Miocic. And that's a really interesting fight. Ciryl Gane versus Stipe. Stipe put on 20 pounds. I mean, that's a very, very interesting fight. And I think it's like anything you're comparing it to. And the only other thing that we have to compare to within the heavyweight division would be Curtis Blaydes. But Curtis hasn't been super bullish on this idea. He hasn't been out and he hasn't been demanding it. And I do think from an X's and O's standpoint, I think that Curtis Blaydes is the hardest stylistic matchup for Jon Jones. But I think Stipe is the hardest stylistic matchup for Ciryl. So it's kind of interesting in who gets to go in there and where do they get to go in. If Ciryl Gane can be the guy to penetrate this little three-way, this little elitist round robin they got going, if he can be the one to penetrate, okay, great. Now Curtis is left out. So Curtis has got to get in there. All the heavyweights, they need to align. They need to follow us. They need to do what Ciryl's doing. They need to get behind Ciryl. Back Ciryl's idea. If you don't have an idea for yourself, go back Ciryl's idea. Get anybody in the world to interrupt this round robin of elitists that have taken a ball and gotten hid for years collectively. And if Ciryl's the one to start that, man, get behind him and support it.